Hey, it's 3 o'clock. Let's call our Zoom meeting to order. Um, it's 3 o'clock. We call it to order. Our first order of business is the COVID-19 Town of Andover information briefing. Eric, would you like to proceed?
Sure. As you know, we're kind of in the midst of a pandemic. So far, Andover has been relatively unscathed. We have no reports, no reported cases of COVID-19 in Andover. That doesn't mean we don't have any. It just means nobody here has gotten tested and has tested positive. So I sent some information to the board earlier, which was just the extrapolated data, basically from the cases so far in Connecticut, both of the number of people who were sick and also the number of dead. So you can consider that or not as at your leisure. So what the town has done is done two things. The first is prioritize putting in place a mechanism for food and food distribution to those that most need it, which tend to be the people that have been needing the food bank services. As many of you know, we've shut down senior transportation because it's basically impossible to do a reasonable job of social distancing if you're transporting multiple people in vehicles. So we have instead switched to a mechanism for delivery of food to those people who use senior transportation to get food in the past. And we also have an arrangement in place with Ted's Market and the CERT team. So they're basically, you can call into the town, you'll be relayed to the CERT team, and you'll be able to essentially order food through Ted's Market and have it delivered. And this, again, is a service for people who either are getting sick and really can't be out and about, or are in an elderly, really high risk category and don't have any family member that can supply them with food. So we're doing what we can to supply services to those people that need it the most. We are also at this point keeping the majority of town employees working from home. And we've done two things with that. One, we've had our IT provider install the firewalls that we were purchasing anyway as part of the IT upgrade for the town hall. Excuse me. And the second thing is that we're enabling the employees to be able to remote into the office and work from home. And the way it's working is that employees, they're not prohibited from coming to the town hall. They're all having to come to the town hall at least a couple times a week to get what they need to do business, but to do as much of their work from home whenever they can. So that's most of what we've been doing on the town side. Does anybody have any specific questions about, kind of what we're doing and where we're at?
No, I would just like to sit there and talk to the other selectmen about, with all of the issues going on, it's imperative that we sit there and communicate directly to our residents in one cohesive voice. So we all are members of the Board of Selectmen with opinions and with a vote. And so as we sit there and do this, I would ask that we allow Eric to be that one voice for us. So we make the decisions, Eric implements the action, and we all move forward. So I'd commend Eric on doing such a good job so far, Eric, and you have to turn that phone off. It's called airplane mode. Okay, good. So anyway, as I was going, we make our decisions and we have Eric implement them as best he possibly can. So, and in these times, it's very difficult for for the community. And I would sit there and give the other members of the Board of Selectmen who recommended very early on that we take some decisive action related to our seniors. I think it prevented some cases in town that could have been uh, difficult for our community to swallow. So early on, the decision to prevent the St. Patrick's Day party, I think, was a very wise decision, and I commend the other members who led that charge. So anyway, Eric, go ahead now. You can keep going. Anybody else with questions? Issues? Okay, so let's move to our next topic, which is our town budget timeline number 2. Eric, I know you have some issues. I know that we have some information provided us by the town attorney as to the process the governor has put in place for budget and getting budgets approved. So why don't you proceed to give us the highlights of what we need to get done?
Okay, so I'll give you the highlights of that, and the town's attorney is also on with us. So if I say anything incorrectly, Dennis, feel free to correct me. But basically, what the governor's executive order said was that the Board of Selectmen, or as it pertains to Andover, is that the Board of Selectmen shall empower the Board of Finance to pass a budget and set a mill rate. So didn't say might, didn't say if it's convenient, said that's what towns have to do. So we got a legal opinion from the town's attorney and basically asked him to say, is there any wiggle room? Are there other options available to us? And Dennis can speak to that more directly, but from everything I know, the answer is no. That will be the procedure that the town will have to follow. And Dennis, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, in my view, that's the procedure that the town will have to follow as of today. I mean, this is obviously, as you can see from the governor issuing orders on a daily basis, this is a moving target and things may change and hopefully we'll get lucky. You've already, at your last meeting that I attended, quite quietly, I heard you make a resolution to postpone the process by 30 days, which means that your next event in the process, you know, if it weren't for this coronavirus crisis and the legal problems created by the governor's orders, would be around the 1st of June to the 12th of June. So you don't really have to do anything now, unless you're not planning on meeting until after that point, and I doubt that that's the case, to issue any orders to the Board of Finance to follow my opinion in any way. And again, it is subject to change. I want to tell you that when I first was asked by Eric to issue an opinion, I, of course, looked around everywhere I could possibly think, and I've got a lot of experience. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of sources, looking to see if I could find anything else, any other legal opinions on this issue, and I found nothing. Okay, I did talk to a policy person down at CCM about this. I didn't, do this in a vacuum. I looked again today to see if there was anything other than my own opinion that I've sent to you, and I haven't seen anything else. So as of now, my opinion stands. I mean, but it's, again, it's a day-to-day thing, and you have done what you need to do up to now. But if you reach that point and there's been no change, the governor's order stays in place or isn't modified in a way to make it things different, you would really have to, in my view, follow through with a resolution authorizing the budget making authority, and in your town, that is, of course, the Board of Finance, to do the budget, and hopefully to do the budget prior to the end of the fiscal year, as it should. So there wouldn't be any annual town meeting or referendum, and that's my opinion. Until I disagree with it for some other reason, somebody can talk me out of it, or and of course, you don't have to follow my opinions. I'm just an advisor. I'm not an elected member of the Board of Selectmen. I don't have the power. But that's my advice, and believe me, I did study that matter very carefully and extensively. And I think you're up to speed so far. But you may down the road, unless we get very lucky and we're out of this thing, and I don't have to stay home to protect myself, and you don't have to do the same. This is the way it's going to be, and the Board of Finance is going to be the budget maker and determinator this year, without official any control, let's say, by the town meeting or the referendum. On the other hand, under the governor's order 7B, there are lots of requirements that you have to fulfill in order to get all the public comment that is necessary. In other words, input and control, of course. And I have to make people in my town aware of that from time to time. Input does not equal control. It's input.
Okay. So Dennis, so if that is the case, then we just have to proceed along a timeline that makes sense for our community and get as much input as we possibly can. So, okay.
Yeah,
So
so
your
just a
opinion was
quick-
extremely thorough.
A quick question. Dennis, you threw out the June timeframe.
Yeah.
Now that would be for if we were normally to go to referendum, it would be like the beginning of May. So you're saying we would, if the 30-day extension allows us to push this out until June?
Correct, Adrian. That would be the first event in the process, which under your charter is the annual town meeting.
Well, that would generally happen the end of, or middle to end of April. We normally would have a public comment with Board of Finance somewhere around the 18th to the 23rd, somewhere in there, that time frame. And then we would have a town meeting the last week of April. And then about 10 days into May, we would actually have the referendum.
Well, my reading of the charter, I may be wrong. You've been living with it. You've been chair of the Board of Finance. My reading of the charter is that your annual town meeting doesn't occur until May.
No, that's always been before that. It's generally been gauged off of the budget cycle, like when we got stuff. Because once you have the meeting, you have to have the referendum within so many days.
So I think if you look at the charter, and I was reviewing that again today, I think your drop dead date per the charter, given that you've allowed yourself a 30-day extension to make a decision, is really the 14th of June.
Oh,
On the 14th of June, you have to have set the budget. I would suggest we don't wait till the very last day, and we give ourselves a little leeway, but in the end, on the 14th of June, the Board of Finance will have had to have approved the budget and set the mill rate.
What's the cutoff date for the bills to go out on time?
So that's a good question.
Is that
Sorry,
That's another way of me saying I don't actually know. But I would hope that if you knew it 15 days in advance, it would be in everybody's hands. July
no, it's not the budget itself. It's for setting the mill rate, because all that has to go to the printers and then get printed and sent out. So I remember that, and I didn't want to say it because I'm afraid that I'm going to be off by a day or two. But I remember I thought it was like June 15th. So I think your date may be fine, but that was my concern.
Well, we're going to have a problem. We're going to have a problem with QDS anyway. I just sent out to all the members of the Board of Selectmen the newest memo from the governor's office, which relates to the tax delay, the payment delay. So we're going to have to get with QDS anyway, Adrian. So we'll have to find that answer out because they're going to have to make some adjustments in the software to allow for potential deferrals and deferments of payments. So we'll sit there and get through that, but I don't think there's any time to really delay. We may have a 30-day window to delay, but the way that this virus is going and the way that this whole issue is going, we're not really going to be able to count on anything. So if we're going to open this budget discussion up for as much public input as possible, we really need to start setting a process and how we're going to go about doing it.
If I can cut in, I'd like to. I
Go
don't want to be rude, you know? Don't forget, I'm from Willimantic. Anyway,
I thought you were originally from New Britain.
I was originally from New Britain, the mean streets of New Britain, that's right.
You just saw New Britain a while ago.
You have to take that into account when you entertain me at a meeting. Anyway, or entertain what I have to say. Anyway, I just want to make sure that Adrian isn't mixing up, and you know, with all due respect, Adrian,
No, please.
public comment with town meeting, because public comment can go on right now. I mean, you can, the Board of Finance is, I would encourage the Board of Finance as they work through the budget to have, you know, substantial public comment. I think that's part of the what the governor the governor wants in his orders, which would be order. Yeah, it's mostly in 7B paragraph 1. Okay, and you really have to comply with that for this meeting that we're having right now, and this applies to all meetings. And you know, public comment is definitely a good idea all the way. You know, and Jeff is right in that regard. That should be going on, you know, now or soon, as much as possible, because if the public isn't going to get a chance to vote in a town meeting or in a referendum, they sure as heck need to have many opportunities for public comment as you can reasonably provide. And I think that's what the governor's orders, both by the letter and the spirit, are aimed at.
Dennis, we're going to talk in a little bit later in what our plan is for soliciting feedback, because we're going to work really hard to get as much public commentary as we absolutely can. If you would like, and Amanda, you give me the ability to share my screen, I'll show you what I had kind of tentatively have in terms of dates, and we can discuss whether we think that's realistic. Amanda?
You're all set. Eric. Go ahead.
Do you
Okay.
see on the bottom of your screen the green arrow?
Yep, I got it. And I want
Just while there's a lull here, we had our public hearing last year on April 23rd and moved at that meeting to send a referendum after.
Public hearing or
What we've always done in the past is we had the public hearing, the meeting, and then after that, we would immediately have a meeting to then forward it to referendum. So we had ours the 23rd of April last year.
yeah, I suppose there's nothing wrong with having it early.
No, I'm not proposing that.
No, I mean, I'm talking about last year.
We've done that pretty much every year that I was involved, that I know of. So
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, so obviously right now it's about April 3rd. You know, I've put out to all of you before, but basically on April 22nd, that's Ram's drop dead date for passing their budget. Okay, so we will have the final Ram number on April 22nd. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is the 13th, and we're going to want to have at least one more budget workshop with the Board of Selectmen. My suggestion is that by April 27th, the Board of Selectmen, you know, at a special meeting, submits the budget to the Board of Finance and, you know, does an authorization to the Board of Finance to hold a public meeting, adopt a budget, set the mill rate. Okay? So that's kind of what I'm proposing for that. And, you know, and that's going to dovetail with a plan, which we'll talk about a little later, and how we get that information to the public and how we solicit comments. Because if the residents can't vote, we need to do everything we can to enable their voices to be heard. So that would be my suggestion. And after that, it's the Board of Finance's responsibility. They have between April 22nd and the 20th of May to hold workshops and do their due diligence on the budget. The 20th of May would be an online budget presentation / public budget meeting for the Board of Finance. And then there will be an additional comment period. And hopefully on around June 8th, the Board of Finance adopts the budget and sets the mill rate. That pushes out most of our 30-day window. Still leaves a week of fallback if they get to the 8th and they still can't quite pass a budget. So that's what I would suggest, giving yourselves enough time to work through the project or work through it in terms of a timeline. And then what myself and Barbara are going to need from the Board of Selectmen collectively is some guidance on where you want to go from the budget that was presented to you previously to a budget that you think would be acceptable.
Well, the Board of Finance at their last meeting asked the Board of Selectmen, and you were part of that conversation, to try to get it down to a single digit number. And they also were looking for some further reduction from the school. Now, I don't know that the school's had a meeting since then, so obviously they probably haven't had a chance to address it. But have you had a chance to work anything up that would meet their requirements yet, Eric?
I can certainly present a budget to the board which satisfies that and minimizes the town budget without, doing major sacrifices. It will put a bunch of our projects and priorities off to future dates, but it will minimize the impacts to taxpayers. What I can't do, though, is I can't cut enough to account for the increase in the RAM budget.
No, I don't think that's what they were asking, but they were, I think if I remember the Board of Finance notes correctly, they were looking for a single digit increase.
Correct.
So if we can get down, to whatever the lowest number is in single digits that we can accomplish without obviously killing what we need to do. Can you work something up like that? I mean, obviously you're dealing with this stuff every day. We can propose a lot of things, but you have to live with the consequences of that. So it might make more sense for you to be the starting point at this point.
So I've certainly worked through a number of budget options. And if you tell me roughly what you want me to present as a board, I can present that in pretty short order within the next day or so.
Something under 2 mils, I think, would be nice. Anybody else?
Well, my issue, Adrian, is that our meetings have kind of come together, but at one meeting we sat there and requested a decrease from our own Board of Education of approximately $400,000, and we all voted unanimously on that. And then we just received a budget today, and a new budget amount with a $55,000 decrease. So my question to the other members of the Board of Selectmen is when we go and we present anything back to the Board of Finance, the biggest issue ends up being we can continue to cut the priorities that we believe we set for the town to try to improve our roads and to do maintenance on our buildings and to actually add staff where appropriate. But if we don't hold the Board of Education to the numbers that we talked about, then we're never going to have the money. We're just going to end up cutting the town budget again, and we're going to get none of the things done that we all believed we should have gotten done this year. And I just asked that question because we need to make a decision on that topic. What do we want to do related to our prior request to have the Board of Education cut $400,000 from their previous year's budget? No discussion.
I think Scott's trying to say something. Let me unmute him. Scott. Scott, you're muted. Can you see if you can unmute yourself from your end, please?
Okay.
There he goes. Okay, go ahead, Scott.
I feel the same way that you do, Jeff.
That was easy. Good. Adrian?
I mean, I agree with you that I think there's more room for them to cut. I don't think $400,000 is doable without cutting into, their mission to provide for this, for the students. I think maybe there's a happy medium in there, but I don't think asking for 4 is fair.
Okay.
Personally. I mean, everyone's going to have an opinion, but having been to the meetings and seen the work that they were doing, I just don't think they can get to 4. I just, because I think that the response from the school is going to be to cut teachers immediately and not dig into what their issues are, which is really more contractual problems personally. But
Okay. Paula?
Yeah, no, I agree. I've been going to the meetings and hearing the same thing and seeing the same thing. So I'm not sure that 400 is a fair number. I think it's got to be lower.
All right. Murray?
I concur.
Okay. So if we can agree that 400,000 is not the right number, is $50,000 the right number?
50,000 in addition to what you mentioned earlier, that they said they did 50, or you're.
No, they have presented us with a number today that cuts their budget by $50,000 from the prior year. So my question is that the right number?
Well, I guess I'm going to answer your question with a question. And you all have a lot more experience with this than I do, but my thinking is the school's closed. I know they still have things that they're paying for. So how does that work with the school closed, and maybe they're not spending money on supplies? I know that's this year's budget, but how does that affect? Can they push anything next year?
So let me interject one thing. One of the governor's executive orders basically required towns to continue their contractual obligations as if all the kids are still employed. So the town, whether it wants to or not, is paying all the custodial staff, paying all the support staff, paying most of the support services for the town. And they're required to negotiate with the bus company, with DETCO, for a reasonable settlement to continue paying them. So I think there will be some savings, but I don't think it's going to be huge. But
I thought it was,
I don't know.
I thought it was bus company, special education services, and technology services.
It also covered custodial staff and a bunch of other things.
No, I know they have to pay everyone that's staff-based,
Employee.
Right.
but beyond that, I thought there was room. Again, even with that, I don't know that it's going to be a big number, though.
The way I read that executive order was that they could negotiate for contracts for actual costs incurred.
Yeah.
But that goes to the point that the superintendent's office and the finance department at the Board of Education or at AES needs to negotiate those things. And I did call Sally this week and asked her to determine if there would be any overages in their budget line items so that we do exactly that, Paula, which is look at some of the potential money not spent to be utilized to offset next year's budget. I haven't gotten anything back on that just yet. So the first thing that we got today was the revised budget from the Board of Education. So that revised budget, like I said, was $55,000 decrease from the prior year. So we know that's their starting point. The question is, do we present the Board of Finance a number that is lower than that? And we don't have to do that today at this meeting, but we do all need to be thinking about it, because if we as a community are going to be able to minimize the impact to our residents on taxes and the mill rate going up this year, then we have to either find money, save money in other places, or use whatever we can to minimize any mill increase. So, and I think that we're all probably on the same page that that's what we'd like to do. The only personally have is for the 4 previous years that I sat on this board, we failed to really move the town forward or to do anything of any substance to improve the town. And this was the first opportunity we really probably had to do that. And COVID-19 is really impacting that. And personally, issues and not just AES, but also, I always talk to the other members of the board and say, if you have customers, you have to cut your expenses so that you can actually try to make money. And in this, if we have a decrease in students, we need to find appropriate levels of decrease in expenses. So I know that's difficult to come by, but it's actually something we as a community need to think about. And so I'm not asking for a decision to be made today, but I do really believe that we need to look at the Board of Education, especially AS, and look for additional cost savings.
Well, they have a meeting scheduled next week, and the Board of Finance did already pass a request over to them to take an additional, I think it was 45,000 off. Is that correct, Mark? Did you guys already send a letter over to them? Okay. Eric, did you communicate that over to them yet?
I did not, because
Okay.
Mark originally at the meeting said he would discuss that with Shannon. So I did not inject myself in that process.
Okay. I mean, I know they've already been asked to take another 45, which would put them at 100 under. Are we looking for, it sounds like, Jeff, you're looking for more than that, though. Do you have a number in mind?
Why were we all involved in with the 400 and now we've all changed our mind? I don't understand where that's coming from. We all decided that the only way that anything's going to happen in this town is to find money from someplace and stop taxing everyone. So we need to find some money from somewhere. That's my opinion.
Look, I can't speak for anyone else. I can only speak for myself. Okay. I have been going to the meetings, and I don't know that there's $400,000 there.
Adrian, I went to a meeting also, so I was at a meeting.
I just, if you asked me to try to make a recommendation right now, looking at their budget of where to cut $400,000, and granted, I'm not an educator, I just to be clear, but if you asked me to come up with a $400,000 cut on that budget, I don't see it. I would be hard pressed to give you a number that would not, or a $400,000 number, I should say, that would not impact the students on a level that I think is unacceptable. I know we need to find money, but I don't know that we need to find it all in one place. I think is what I'm trying to say. I think
since you've been there, what is the number?
I mean, if you're asking,
I'm not
if you're
saying it has to be 100,000. I'm just sitting and I'm not sure 55,000 is the right number.
I mean, I can tell you, I personally wouldn't support more than 200. Anything above 200, I cannot support.
Okay. Well, we have our regular meeting on the 13th. I think we should all be coming to that meeting and get it out of the way so the Board of Finance can actually do it. I definitely think we need to look at that. We need to sit there and push the school, to sit there, try to look at those contracts that we all keep talking about that we don't believe are in the town's interest. So, anybody else want to discuss this topic before we move on?
Well, if we're talking about
just say-
budget numbers, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
I just want to say a few things. If we're going to ask for a large amount from the school, we should have equal heartburn on the town side. I mean, we shouldn't ask the school to bear the brunt of these cuts. I mean, I think there's things that we can get away with putting off this year, but I definitely think we need to concentrate on the road work and we need to concentrate on the Bunker Hill Bridge.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's my comments.
Jeff, would you have any objection to asking Eric to put together that budget that the Board of Finance was looking for to show us if he can do something like that?
Yeah, I think it's doable. I just think we need to find a couple $100,000 on our side. Just, if we're going to ask the school to make significant cuts, we need to really look at our own budget and at the town side and then just to decide whether we need, we need a new mower this year or we can get away with the other one for another year. I mean, I definitely think we need to do some road work. I mean, that definitely needs to happen and we definitely need to move forward on the bridge.
I agree with you. I would like to have Eric put that together, I guess, and kind of, I think we all come to that table with different priorities and I'd like him to be the one that has to live with the budget he puts together,
Yeah, it's just, I know we had some money set aside for the fire truck fund. We had some money set aside for the community center building. And I think we maybe need to look at putting that on hold and keeping that money in reserve because I mean, this is unprecedented what we're going through. And we really need to watch our pocketbook because I don't know what's going to even happen next budget season. We need to be prepared for, pretty much anything, but we need to move the town ahead. So we need to work on those critical things and maybe just kind of tighten our purse strings a little bit with the other expenditures.
All right. So I'd like to, I guess at this point I'd like to make a motion then. We were at what, 11%, Eric, something like that?
Yeah, we were, right around 11% total increase.
I'd like to make a motion then that we ask Eric to put a budget together that's under a 5% increase.
I mean, I can definitely do that. What I will tell you is that RAM alone is going to cost us about 1.6 mils right now. So that implies basically a level town budget. I mean, we can move some stuff around and still make our priorities, but that's going to be basically a level town budget, just so that you know. I'm not saying we can't do that, and I'm not saying we can't get a lot of what we want done with that.
But can we? I would want you as part of this motion to look at using reserve funds, but still keeping us above the 10% that the Board of Finance has set as a threshold. And if we need to collapse other funds or whatever we need to do to move that stuff around, that's what I'd like to see. At least give us a starting point for discussion when we come back to the table.
Okay. If that's what the board wants, I'll supply that to you tomorrow.
Can I get a second on that?
What?
Can I get a second from another select board member?
Well, one thing I'm concerned about is I don't want to use our fund balance because we got into this discussion last year about using fund balance to fund the town's expenses. And if we get hit next year, I mean, we're just kind of that's kind of kicking the can down the road in the other direction.
I'd like to only use fund balance for the bridge, things that are one-time type things, the bridge, the trees and road work. I think that would be acceptable. Would that be acceptable to you, Jeff?
That would be acceptable. But I don't want to try to pay for regular town expenses with fund balance. Like if we, I said, this is critical and that fund balance is for emergencies. And I think we're in an emergency situation at this point.
Well, we're not touching the emergency reserve unless you tell me to.
No, I think
I'm not including that.
I think Jeff's point is not even, we don't want to pay for regular town expenses out of our overage balance. So if we're talking about adding a person to a department, say, we're not funding that out of our savings. It needs to be. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yeah, like the trees with the caterpillars and the tree damage that we had. And that's going to be a one-time thing. That's just something that happens.
Yeah.
Those are the things we should try to cover with these, because I think that's just going to be a one-year hit, or,
Yeah.
you know, in the following years, it won't be as bad, but I think we're going to have a big hit coming this year with the tree removal.
I agree. So Jeff, would you be willing to second the motion to ask Eric to put that budget together?
Sure, I'll second it.
For the guy,
No, I just want to say I think it makes more sense to do it this way. This is step one. And then step two, we think about what the number is and come up with it that way. Because I'd like to see what Eric puts together. And then that'll help me kind of with my thoughts about that number that we're going to talk about.
We need something for discussion. We definitely need something so we can discuss.
Yeah, Scott?
Yeah, you think that I need to say something, Adrian, right? I've spoken to a lot of taxpayers lately, and they're all still in favor of the senior/community center, especially since this problem that we're having right now. So I don't think that the community center, Jeff, should be taken off the bill. Not at all. They all almost unanimously, everyone I spoke to, and I didn't speak about the budget or anything. I spoke about that expressly, and they said that they still wanted to see that. They all said that it probably would have come in handy right now. So, and a lot of seniors, Republicans, Democrats, mostly Republicans, all said the same thing.
Listen, I don't agree. I personally don't disagree with you. I think it would have came in handy. I think having a kitchen to be able to prepare meals and stuff like that would be great right now. But I don't know about anybody else. I know my wife hasn't had a check in 3 weeks. So,
well, there's always issues. I mean, at least all I said, it's a starting point, and we can at least start to discuss a little bit more as to what we really want to bring to the taxpayers. I mean, because personally, the issue that we're facing this year is that because this is such a different process, we have to be concerned and of what we're going to ask our residents to incur. So we have to look at this and be as, we may have to push some of the things off that we all have to do right now for another year, because we're going to have to wait and see what really shakes out of all this.
Right.
But we need a starting point. Let's get the starting point. And I will tell you one thing, we probably need to communicate as a board to RAM to make sure that RAM understands our issue of, the situation that we're currently in the town of Andover, and that, if Eric is saying that the RAM budget is going to increase our taxes by 1.6 mils, then we need to make a point to them that maybe they should think about doing the same things they were having to think about doing.
well, I mean, it's a separate issue from this motion, but I think we should use all the town's current media platforms to ask people to sign on to that RAM call that's coming up. I think it's April 20th or 22nd, something like that.
April 20th.
Okay, so I mean, I think we should be using the town's media in every avenue we have to get residents to call into that call and let them know that. Unfortunately, residents haven't been very vocal at those meetings. It's one or two people here and there, so we need to get people mobilized for that.
So we have a motion in front of us. Would we like to, any further discussion? We'd like to vote. We all set? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So Eric, you'll sit there and help us through that process and get us a revision on your budget document.
So if I understand correctly, you want a budget that still funds the, at least a portion of the bridge. You want one that does road work, and does some tree trimming and comes in under basically, so we bring the total budget in under a 5% increase. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. We'd like you to try to fulfill the things that we know we need. So I think like land use has been a discussion. We need hours there. We know that Kathy Palazzi has decided to step down as of June. So we need to figure out a solution for that. So, you know, if it's possible to include those things, but those things can't be funded out of reserve.
So Eric, you're gonna have to make some cuts, and what we're asking you to do is you take the first crack at the cuts so
Sure.
that we can evaluate what you've done and then determine if we don't like them, we need to make more. And then
Understood.
we should probably schedule another meeting. Well, we have a meeting 13th, so what's today? Today is the 3rd. We'll get back to it. Maybe we schedule another meeting next week after you get us your first crack at it. Okay?
Yeah, and
Monday, Tuesday.
And Scott, can I ask you, you guys haven't had a chance to have a meeting yet with the community thing, right?
Yeah, no, it's supposed to be the 11th, or no, or the 1st.
But do you or Jeff have any indication as to a cost factor that we need? I mean, and I know originally the state was talking about funding some of the grants again that we should have been back in line. Is there any opportunity in that to look at what we actually need for that community center / senior center if we're going in that direction? If that's what you'd like to try to put forward, Scott?
Me and Jeff need to have a meeting.
Yeah, we need to schedule something. Now that we have Zoom, we could probably do a meeting. And then one thing I wanted to add to Scott's question about the community centers, I think at the last budget meeting, we decided we were going to move the library fund money over for the community center. So that money's already dedicated for a building fund. So we really wouldn't be cutting that out of the budget because it's a dedicated fund.
Sure we are. If you're expecting me to come under 5%, that money's getting repurposed and it's not getting repurposed for a senior center.
Well, can we legally do that? If it was meant for a building fund, if it was dedicated fund?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If you're asking, is it legal to do it? Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's legal as long as it would, to be clear, so everyone understands, it would have to be spelled out as part of the budget document that we are taking a fund and moving it to another location. It couldn't just be done. It'd have to be noted in the budget document.
So the Board of Selectmen by charter has the authorization to move money out of existing funds.
Even one that was passed as part of a budget?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Well, to be really honest on that issue, Eric, if your thought is that you're going to move the library fund to do road work or something along that lines,
Sure.
I do believe I'll go this way, Eric. We're going to discuss that issue.
Sure.
You can make that as as one of your points, and then at our next meeting we'll have a discussion about it as to where.
I think
Absolutely.
I think to Jeff's point, it's more palatable to have a building fund be moved to a community building fund rather than moving it to something else.
Mhm. And that's okay. I mean, the Board of Selectmen, that would probably be one of the items that Eric might get pushback on. So but let's,
Understood.
right?
Ultimately, it's got to be the budget you push forward, not the budget I want. So,
Well, let's see what yours looks like and then we'll figure it out.
sure.
It's a budget you need to support, but it's a budget that you need to be able to operate the town effectively and efficiently and get some of the priorities you have done.
Sure.
And that's the key.
Well, just
Getting some things done.
I'd like to have at least 2 or 3 days to sit with that budget before we have a meeting, though. You know, so I don't want to come into a meeting and then be handed a budget. Just so we're clear.
So just in a preliminary, let's think about next Friday because we can do that, it'll give Eric enough time to get it to us, and then it'll give us enough time to go through it. So have we been on to the process and the discussion? I'm assuming that we've already gone past item 4. Eric, is that accurate?
Yes, I think we're basically on 4. Now, the only question I had is, does the board have any more feedback for me in terms of what the timeline? So I put out a timeline, is that something, are you happy with that? Are you unhappy with that? Where do you want to go with it?
Well, given what Dennis is saying, I wouldn't mind adding a little bit of time to that, because that'll give us a chance to see what RAM really does and what the school does.
Thought Eric timeline, and Eric, share your screen again, please.
Sure.
Because I thought Eric's timeline had RAM as a decision by the end of April. So
Correct.
we're going to know what RAM is doing.
Well, all right.
Yeah, so you'll know RAM basically either the 20th or the 22nd. They may pass it after their budget meeting on the 20th, but they allowed themselves till the 22nd in case their members wanted to make significant changes prior to the adoption of the budget. So, but what I'm saying is that you should probably plan on handing over by the 27th of April, handing over to the Board of Finance a proposed budget, as well as a motion to authorize them to schedule an online meeting, solicit commentary, pass a budget, and set a mill rate. So that gives them enough time to do their jobs.
As long as we think RAM's going to adopt by the 22nd, I'm fine with that. But
Right.
I would.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. What if they stall?
Right. I mean, I don't want to be on the 27th having to push a budget to BOF if we don't know where RAM's at that point, because there is a belief right now, I think, that RAM is going to try to jam a bunch of things in that budget, given that they don't have to get approval now. So,
See there, that ball field that everybody was talking about is approved. They put it in the budget.
No, they
No.
did not put the
It's-
$2 million.
I read it. I read it
field in the
today.
budget.
Redo the field. Yeah, I saw it in there.
Well, again, so those things I think we have to be aware of. And again, it goes back to what I was saying. We need to use all our platforms to get people on that call.
With all of this situation being so fluid, it's not as if, even if this is our timeline, we can sit there and change it.
Sure. Yeah.
But here's the thing, Jeff. I know that you don't participate in social media, but most people, once they look at it once, will not go back and look at your modified timeline. So if we put something out there, people are going to remember that date, and they're not going to go back and look at it again and go, oh, look, they changed it. So.
Right. But we could update. We can do a new post and update the information. Right.
I'll tell you what, why don't we at our regular scheduled meeting refine our timeline?
Fine.
Right?
Okay.
We don't have to decide it right now, but I'm telling you, even though I'm not on social media, I do read the paper. Scott and I both, we're pretty good at reading the paper.
You don't read the paper because it's not being printed right now. For reference.
Doesn't it get mailed to me? I thought the post office was still working, Adrian.
Yeah, well, there's no River East right now.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, River East has shut down publication.
You know that thing that comes in your mailbox that you read?
No, it has a lot of good editorial.
And Adrian, when you get a minute, check their budget and you'll see that there was $350 or something to redo one field and $125 or something to redo a baseball field.
Okay. So we have to address that. So the timeline, let's try to set the timeline for our next regularly scheduled meeting, and then we can post it to social media and all the platforms we need to post it to, so that we can let everybody participate as much as possible.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Is there anything
So-
else, Eric?
Yeah, the other question I had is that we really kind of need decisions from you all on is how we plan on going about notifying the public, number one, and then soliciting comments. And I'm sharing my screen right now, which shows kind of where we're going. Amanda has created a Google Doc, which you should have all had to look at, that will have all the budget information on it, as well as a reply form, so the public can make commentary directly to that Google Doc. I think that's what RAM has done, and that looks like a pretty effective method of doing it. We are also setting up a YouTube channel, or correction, we have set up a YouTube channel. Thank you, Paula and Amanda, for that. And Nick Levine of the Community Voice channel is recording all these meetings, and they will all be available on the Town of Andover's YouTube channel for all of eternity. The third thing is doing some sort of budget presentation online at some point. At some point, we're probably going to need either the Board of Finance to do it or somebody from the Board of Selectmen to do it, to actually present the budget online, and solicit feedback. That could be done through the YouTube channel, that could be done on Facebook Live. There's a number of platforms to do it, but we would have to figure out who's going to do it and when you're going to do it. I think we should probably consider a mailer to all the residents. That can be done very short-term notice. Our printer, whose name I can't pronounce to save my life, starts with a G, has said they right now have about a 1-day turnaround time because they're not that busy. So we would put out a mailer to all residents with information on how they can access the budget and provide feedback. We should have an email address. It's already set up now, actually. It's budget@andoverct.org that anybody can solicit comments to. And what's going to happen is Amanda's basically going to condense all those contacts or those comments into a single document and then submit that to either the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance, depending on where we are in the process. And then we're going to put the notices up on the town hall window, which we've been using as our official notice board since the town hall is closed. And then the other thing, several people have asked me whether we would use the town's notice board, because I guess for whatever reason, the rec commission owns a notice board. And several people have suggested that we put the notice board at the transfer station exit. I'm personally not particularly in favor of that idea, but that's just me. Maybe that's a valid way to reach townspeople also and get the information to them.
I have to tell you, Eric, I would disagree given our experiences with political campaigns in town. I think the transfer station is a fantastic place to get information across.
Well, if you want, we can put up a notice board at the exit of the transfer station.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even be opposed to taping things on the compactors. I mean, I think that's the only place that people are going to right now is the transfer station. One of the only.
No, you don't want people, because then people are just going to group up.
Okay.
Last thing you want to do is do it where they all get together. If they do it at the exit, they're going one at a time and they're in their cars.
I mean,
Okay.
social media is definitely the platform to reach a majority of people.
Yeah.
So maybe right now we can hold off on the transfer station until we.
Well, once we have something in place to put out there, I think the exit board definitely. Maybe if we don't want to put it up on the street, we can always put it on the lower section there before you go up the hill, somewhere.
Right. Well, the exit board, maybe it could just be something like check the town website for information. So it can be a general.
Yeah, budget information available, town website, whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be detailed. Just check the town website or visit the Facebook page. And which I don't see this on here. Can we add to this the town website?
Sure.
Did you finish fixing it yet,
Eric?
Paul?
No, I was waiting for you to jump back in.
Eric, how many residents have signed up for the emergency notifications?
Last time I checked, around 750.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we need to use that too.
Yeah, definitely.
Do we have email addresses for most of those individuals?
Most, but not all.
I mean,
But again,
that
for
would be
that, go ahead, sorry.
Paul, after you.
Oh, so kind, thank you. No, I would just say for that, again, push people to the website or the Facebook page, whatever the message is. It doesn't have to be a long email, just something, hey, it's budget season, we have a new plan in place. Please visit our website or our Facebook page for more information. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a long, document or something like that.
I'd like to see us, somebody needs to proof that before it goes out, because the last one was like, a book.
Okay. Well,
So you want a novella, not a novel, is what you're saying.
That would be a preference, under 100 pages, yes.
Listen, I'm gonna cut Jeff off again. I'm so sorry, but here's my thing. If we want to build our audience on Facebook and we want people to go to our website, we have to use our other channels to say, please visit, and not put a whole bunch of info there. So if we keep it short and sweet, they're going to know to go check that every once in a while, even when we don't send out a message.
So you're saying use it as a channel driver.
Yes, the emergency system or whatever. And then, of course, if there's something that we really need to get out there, God forbid, then we use that with detailed info. But I think for something like this, to let them know how the budget process is going to be, we push them to the website and the Facebook page.
Well, and I think that we did that pretty well with some of the things. Amanda made some modifications to the posts so that the front page of the website pushed them with a direct link. I wonder if we can actually, does anyone have an objection to putting a link on the town website to link back to the Facebook page?
No, if it's possible, but I mean, with the new website, we'll have the icon there. But
Can we do it on the old one, on the front page?
It's already on there.
It is?
Yes. The link to the Facebook page is on the homepage of the website.
Okay. All right, go check it, Adrian.
Amanda.
Go to it. Amanda, thank you very much for that. So,
You're
Paul,
welcome. And I would encourage you all to look at the homepage of the website. It has all information that our residents would need for dealing with this COVID crisis. So please let me know if you have any suggestions.
I think part of the problem is, Amanda, I just went to it. It's at the bottom of your red column. Can you do an icon so that it actually shows up? Because right now the problem is everything is text format. So it's getting lost in that. No
Yeah.
one's going to see that.
I don't know. This site is so archaic. I don't know if it's possible, honestly.
If only we had our new website.
yes, let me ask that question. When is that going to be launched?
Well,
Okay, so to be clear, it is possible because you have a link on the East Coast Greenway. So Amanda, if you look and see how they did the East Coast Greenway link, we should be able to do a Facebook link the same way.
Okay, I'll work on that and make it happen.
Please. Thank you. If there's something we can do to help you.
All right. Is
Paul,
there,
I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead.
how rude.
you didn't apologize to me.
I'm sorry. Did you say something, Jeff? I had you on mute.
Yes, exactly. Eric,
Yes.
what is remaining for our meeting?
So is there anything in terms of, does the plan we put forward in terms of notifying public and soliciting comments, are you on board with it? Are you guys on board with us sending out a mailer? Is there anything you want to add or subtract from that list?
Yeah, I would say number 10, you got to put the emergency system in there. I think we definitely need to do a mailer. I don't know how much that's gonna be. Maybe we can get a quote to see.
If we could
Um,
find a printer that's open.
Well, I
Yeah,
think,
so we're all set with our standard printer is on board with doing it. They have a 1-day turnaround. I don't know what the exact cost is, but I mean, the majority of the cost is just the cost of postage. Actually printing and, single tabbing a piece of paper is pretty cheap.
I think if you reach out to Carol, she'll probably give it to you off the top of her head.
Well, we usually put out one for the budget referendum anyways, and it doesn't sound like we're gonna be putting one out for this year anyway, so that's our.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
So what I will say is the money is there for it, already budgeted. So it's not an issue of that. Just a question of whether you want to do it or not. And my suggestion is we do it.
I agree.
All right. Eric, we are in April now as well, and we're talking budget. Have you started looking at where we are for this year? And is it possible, when considering your budget changes, I've just sort of thought of this, that you look at whatever shifting you can do this year to pick up stuff that was in there,
Yeah, actually, I was having a discussion with Barbara about that very thing this morning, and
great.
seeing what we could push on this year's, because there are some areas that, because we're just not doing as much right now, we're going to have some savings.
Okay.
Yes.
I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yep.
Okay. So any other issues related to the notification of the public and soliciting comments? Anybody else?
No, I just have a quick question about number 3. So Facebook Live, would it be somebody doing it from their home? Because I'm not aware of how you can do it live with multiple accounts.
So I got that suggestion from Mark, who's the administrator or town manager or administrator, I guess, from Columbia. And he said basically what they're doing is they're having a room with exactly 3 people on it and one of the meeting room web cameras. And it's basically chair board of finance, finance director, and himself as town administrator. And they're doing a budget presentation and receiving commentary on it as one of their methods for notifying the residents. Now we don't have that as a webcam, but it's not to say we couldn't get one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we could probably figure out how to do it without a webcam. But that's something we can talk about down the road.
I can get us a webcam. That's not a problem.
Look at you coming through.
Well, we can have the puppets do it, Paula. Let's have the puppets do it.
Yeah, you could use a sock puppet. The 2 sock puppets giving the budget presentation.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So back
We
to
heard.
back to our meeting. We will figure out how to do the Facebook Live so that everyone that's on social media can actually get updated as to our budget. And we'll sit there and continue to update the, if we come up with anything else on notifying the public, we'll let you know what we can do.
Sure.
I mean, I'd even throw out there, I mean, I can make myself available if, people want a time to be able to reach out to us to talk, I mean, whether it's Facebook Live or people can send in questions that we can answer, just make ourselves available to answer questions on something like that, so that it's not just a presentation. We can have something interactive if they'd like. I'd be willing to put some time in for that if that'll help.
All right. Well, we'll sit there and address that at our regular meeting on the 13th. So let's
Okay.
sit there and move this to the next step. So I think we actually, what is the next section on our public comment related to this, or do we have anything else that we want to do?
That's it for me.
I have to get to my other computer to see my agendas. Okay, Amanda, do you handle public speak? see if there's any residents that would like to talk to us or talk at us. Please be aware that we're only going to have public speak for, is 2 minutes acceptable to the rest of the members of the Board of Selectmen?
Yep.
Okay.
And I just want to say, so if you want to do public speak, I can't see everybody's face, so we'll have to just let you guys allow yourselves to unmute yourself. But if we start getting feedback, I'm going to have to mute everyone and we'll start over. Okay.
I saw Elaine was up. Elaine?
I have to unmute myself. Okay, hi. Yeah, Elaine Bookart, East Street. I just wanted to mention that I had requested that Amanda go ahead and record all of these meetings, and they can just be sent to CVC and put on their YouTube, like the ones that we were doing with camera. So these meetings are going to go to CVC, and they're going to be displayed just like when we had the cameras there.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you, Elaine. We actually have Nick from CVC on the Zoom meeting today, and he is broadcasting this live, and then it will be available on the CVC site after the meeting.
That's excellent. So it's a direct feed now.
Yes.
Perfect.
Anyone else?
Thanks for making that happen, Elaine.
You're welcome.
Okay, we've got an iPhone that popped up. Anybody else want to talk during public speak here?
It looks like you had Jed Larson opened up. He's unmuted.
Okay. Well, if that is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak to us? Oh, hello.
Central 103 Ray Hill Road. Basement door. Answering.
Oh,
I think that's a pocket dial.
yeah, I just muted that.
All right. So I think if no one else wants to sit there and participate and speak, then I think we're ready to adjourn this meeting. Anyone like to make that motion?
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Seconded.
All right. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you. Appreciate all you do.